Welcome back to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex, my co-host Anthony Rivardo, and today we're talking New York Giants football bye week. You know how it is, kind of finding things to do these days, but there's actually a lot more that you'd expect with McKinney coming back, Ocean Eximinas, and that Giants right in the NFC East hunt, and it's getting pretty exciting, I must say, and the schedules are kind of getting down to the wire here, and with these past 2 weeks, the Giants winning over Philadelphia and Washington, they're right in the middle of the NFC East race. They're 0.5 games back from Philadelphia, who have been struggling incredibly. They just lost to the Browns. So this is a really big next week 12 for us, and we're getting some players back. And we're going to talk about the implications of the NFC East, what's to come, each schedule for each team, and are the Giants' chances of actually winning the NFC East very good, or are they like kind of in the middle towards the bottom? We'll talk about that too. But Anthony, my friend, before we dive into the topic of the day, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, mostly thanks to the Cleveland Browns and Olivier Vernon, New York Giants legend Olivier Vernon. He had a great game, and the Browns had a great game. You know, I always love to watch the Philadelphia Eagles lose on Sundays or Thursdays or Mondays. Whenever they're playing, I want to see them lose, and they lost, and I'm very happy about it. So thank you to Cleveland. They really boosted my mood this week.
Yeah, that big contract we gave to Olivier Vernon's finally paying off, isn't it? You know, we shipped him to the Browns. We got Kevin Zeiler, and we got a loss to Philadelphia. Pretty good trade if you ask me. You know, we couldn't have predicted that one, but I'll take it any day of the week. And the Eagles losing was huge for us, obviously. You know, the Giants are on a bye week this week. Then again, Dallas and Washington both won. So that's very bad. Dallas somehow managed to overcome the Vikings, which was a very close game. But, Andy Dalton leading this team, and that defense is being shredded still by every team they play. But the reality is that, we needed Dallas to lose this game. I did not expect them to be winning games after losing Dak Prescott, and here they are, climbing away with wins, and the Giants now are in a position they need to continue to win. And from my perspective, they have one of the hardest schedules upcoming over any team. I think Dallas actually has the weakest, Anthony. I want you to read off Dallas' schedule compared to the Giants and kind of give us an idea of what we should expect moving forward.
Yeah, well, Dallas, they just got a clutch win over Minnesota, like you mentioned. Next week, Thanksgiving game, they'll be playing the football team. That's pretty winnable. The football team's pretty bad. I guess it really could go 50-50. They have the same record, right? If I'm not mistaken, they're both 3-7. Like us, we're all tied at 3-7 in second place in the division. Philadelphia is a half a game ahead because they tied earlier this season. So they're going to play the football team, which is very winnable, and then they're going to play the Ravens, and that's another Thursday night game for them. Now, the Ravens are the better football team, but are they playing like the better football team? That's very debatable. The Ravens have really been struggling lately. I know they
Right.
did, hang in there with the Titans, and the Titans are a really good football team. They lost in overtime, but still, the Ravens are a team that have had some struggles this year, and it wouldn't completely shock me to see them lose to some, favorable matchups as the season goes on. And then Dallas is going to go from the Ravens to the Bengals. The Bengals just lost Joe Burrow. We're all aware of that because the Giants are going to be playing the Bengals next week. That's a huge loss for them. Prayers up to Joe Burrow. Hate to see that happen. Super talented player.
Seriously.
I'm a big fan of his, actually, and sucks to see him go down. So the Cowboys are going to benefit from that in Week 14 once they play them, and then they're going to play another team with another injured quarterback in the 49ers, led by, I believe, still Nick Mullins. Is Nick Mullins still starting at quarterback for them, right? So that's a favorable matchup probably for Dallas again if they continue to improve their play. And then they'll play Philadelphia, which is huge. That's a huge divisional game that we have to keep an eye on, Week 16 against Philadelphia. Whoever wins that could see themselves fighting for first place in the division. And then Week 17, they're going to finish on the road in MetLife Stadium against the New York Giants. They're going to play the Giants in Week 17. And really, if you look at these schedules, that game, it could decide the NFC East, and it could decide who makes it to the playoffs. And that would be crazy, and I would really be excited for that, but I'll just throw this out here. The last time the Giants played Dallas in Week 17, win or go into the playoffs, Victor Cruz sauced it all over the Cowboys.
Oh, yeah.
And we got a pretty solid victory, and then we ended up winning the Super Bowl that season. So just keep that in mind if it does come down to a Week 17 matchup. Last time it did, it definitely went our way.
Yeah, absolutely. That game, it really could come down to that. I've been saying that the past 2 weeks. That Dallas Cowboys Giants game, Week 17, could be the deciding factor, and honestly, I'm there for it. That sounds like an awesome game to watch. The Giants defense, I've heard multiple analysts say this week that the Giants have the best defense in the NFC East, and they are the best team in the NFC East. And that's kind of like where I'm kind of stuck on right now. They're 3-7, right? And a lot of people keep saying, the Giants are 3-7. They're not that good, this and that. And I think they're trending migrating upward, right? They were bad. They were bad the first 5-6 weeks of the season, but now we're seeing them turn a corner. The defense is finishing games in the fourth quarter. Daniel Jones hasn't turned the ball over in 2 games. And today, Leonard Williams even said about Joe Judge's style, if players like to win, they like his style. Right? If they like to win, if you actually want to win in the NFL, you like Joe Judge's style. And that's very similar to Bill Belichick, Bill Parcells, Big Tuna. You know what I mean. This is the type of style that you have to encourage, disciplinary, authoritarian in a way, and really hold everybody accountable. Everyone's being treated the same. That's the whole Mark Colombo concept that we've understood from this past week. The firing of him, he basically he spoke back to Judge, called him a pretty bad name, I've heard, and then, of course, security ushered him out of the building. That's what you have to do. You can't let anyone have an advantage. You can't let anyone think that they're better than the head coach. And Judge is really setting the standard, delivering the consequences appropriately. And I think he's making sure everybody understands that if you don't want to be on this team, if you don't follow the rules, you're going to be cut. You're going to be released or fired. That's the reality of the New York Football Giants right now. And I think it's working because we haven't seen this much momentum, positive momentum, in years. I don't even think 2016 could be measured as positive momentum because it was really a one and done, and then the Giants went all the way to the bottom of the league again. So I'm pretty excited to see where this team goes, but I think they're only going to keep getting better. But that leads me to their schedule, really. And, we have the Bengals, like Anthony mentioned. Burrow is out with a torn ACL and MCL and more structural damage. Prayers up to him. He really, I love him as a player, and I did not want to see him. I want to see the Giants beat good teams. I don't want to see them overcome bad teams and then lose to good ones. I want to see them compete, and even if they lose, they're playing against good teams. That's really what makes you a better one. But then they go to Seattle, who has the worst pass defense in the NFL. Okay, the Giants also have one of the best.
They also have one of the best passing attacks in the NFL.
Exactly. So that's the problem. And, it actually is funny because the Seahawks' weakness is the Giants' also their weakness. And the Seahawks' strengths is the Giants' weakness, right? So the Seattle Seahawks have the worst passing defense in the league, but the Giants don't have a really great passing offense. They really have been running the ball more than anything the past 2 weeks. They have 2 consecutive weeks with 150-plus yards on the ground. So that's really where they're going to be focusing. And then the Giants' defense is 24th in the league in yards per game allowed through the air. And then you have Seattle, like Anthony just mentioned, who has one of the best passing attacks in the game with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. Then you have Russell Wilson, former Hall of Famer. So this is not going to be a good matchup. Their weaknesses really match up not well with ours, and our strengths are really don't match up well with theirs because they don't really have that great of a running game. Their offensive line's very sketchy. We need to scheme pressure around Russell Wilson to beat him.
Yeah, for sure. That's going to be a tough matchup, and then they're going to go right ahead into another tough matchup the following week against Arizona. Another player very similar to Russell Wilson, another great passing attack.
That's tough.
Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray, he has been a real problem. DeAndre Hopkins has been a real problem for opposing defenses. Those are 2 tough matchups in a row. And then, of course, against Cleveland. I was really looking forward to this matchup because it was going to be Odell's homecoming game. I'm really disappointed that he's injured and he's not going to be able to come back to MetLife. I think that would have been a really great story and a really entertaining matchup. But unfortunately, we're not going to get to see that happen. But Cleveland is another one of those teams. Their record is really good, right? But they have struggled. They have played a lot of mediocre teams and just barely snuck by, especially like this week. They did beat Philadelphia, and we could be very thankful for that. But that game was pretty close, and they were really struggling for a large portion of that game. Really, if it wasn't for a defensive touchdown earlier in that game, I'm not sure if they would have won that game. So, and that was basically just because Carson Wentz is terrible and threw a terrible interception.
He's so bad.
And it just handed them points. Yeah, so... And then, again, Baltimore, another team, great record, good roster. They've been struggling here and there, right? So, when you look at the Giants' schedule, it's really tough. Cincinnati is by far our most winnable game, and then, of course, Week 17 against Dallas. Those are the 2 bad teams that we're going to play, right? But then Seattle, they're like a borderline Super Bowl contender. Cardinals, they're a dark horse Super Bowl contender. The Browns, I think they're pretenders. I don't think they're that good, but, they do have a better record than us. Baltimore, going into the season, they were Super Bowl contenders, legitimate. They don't look like that right now, but who's to say in the final 2 weeks of the season that they're not going to get hot again and start to make that playoff push? That's scary for the Giants that they're going to have to play Baltimore week 16. And then, of course, Dallas in week 17. I do really think there's a solid chance with the way that our schedule looks and the way that Dallas' schedule looks. That could be the deciding game. It could be Giants versus Dallas. Whoever wins is in. And that would really excite me. Like I said, that would be really exciting. But one thing I want to point out, you mentioned the Giants are trending upwards, right? I want to point this out. The Giants in their last 5 games are 3-2. Dallas is 1-4, Washington is 2-3, and Philadelphia is 2-3. Everyone is trending downwards except for the Giants. The Giants are trending upward, and that's really encouraging as we move on to the second half of the season, especially coming out of a bye week. Rested up, hopefully getting healthier and getting a few defensive players back, which we'll talk about in the next video. And then hopefully, we get those guys back in the roster or back in the lineup, and we make a push after the bye week, fully energized and rested and ready to go and compete and win this division, because I do believe that there's a really solid chance we can come out on top.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And here's the thing. The Giants, like you mentioned, over the past 5 games, I'll take it even one step further. The past 6 games, they're 3-3. Right, the Giants are 3-3. They've lost those 3 games by a combined 6 points. And those are decent teams. I think the Giants are a quintessential trap team. If you're the Cardinals, if you're the Seahawks, if you're the Browns, the Ravens, you're going in feeling pretty good. It's the 3-7 Giants, or it's the 4-7 Giants. They're not that good, but their defense is legit. The Giants' defense is way better than people are giving them credit for. Like I just mentioned, I just listed off. They're 12th in points allowed per game, and they're 6th in stopping the run. Their secondary is a little bit skim, but they're getting Xavier McKinney back at free safety, so I think that will help. And I think Julian Love can also go down and play cornerback if they really needed him to. I don't think he will. I think they're going to roll with Ryan Lewis and Isaac Yiadom, which I don't necessarily like at all, but that's just the reality of where they are and who they have on the roster and who understands the scheme at this point in the season. But Patrick Graham, man, has been doing a phenomenal job. Jerome Henderson with the defensive backs. We're getting Tate Crowder back, Adrian Colbert, we're getting back O'Shane Ximenez. We're very thin outside linebackers, so we're getting a ton of talented guys that are going to help reinforce this defense early. Like, they have been without McKinney, they've been without O'Shane Ximenez, without Tate Crowder, without Colbert. All of these pretty talented players, and we don't know about some of them like McKinney, but they've been without them playing well. So you inject all this talent, all this high energy, and these guys that want to come and improve themselves and make an impact immediately right into this defense. I think it's only going to help, right? I can't imagine that Tate Crowder is any worse than Devontae Downs, because Devontae Downs is a run-stopping linebacker. He's not a cover linebacker. And Blake Martinez's role is mainly to stop the run. He's really stopping the run and delayed blitzes. That is his job right now, maybe spying running backs. That second middle linebacker spot has been a complete disaster because we don't have a cover linebacker there that can really hold it down. And Devontae Downs is not doing the job in terms of covering that spot up. So I think getting Tate Crowder back is going to be a big boost for us in that category. But CB2 is still my biggest concern because that's the one position that remains a big weakness. And funny enough for the Eagles, I don't even know how dumb you could possibly be, but they were like, nah. Screw Isaac Yiadom. Let's not throw at him. Let's go throw it at James Bradbury. And you know what happens? 3rd and 4th down conversions are basically off the board. He made massive plays in the 4th quarter. And Philadelphia, their coaching staff must be seeing ghosts or something, like Sam Darnold style, throwing to James Bradbury. I don't know why you would do that. Why do you throw to a guy that has a better coverage grades than Stephon Gilmore and Jalen Ramsey this year? Riddle me that, Philadelphia, Doug Peterson. Riddle me that. Then you have Carson Wentz, who leads the league in interceptions.
I've been saying it. Doug Peterson, I think, is the most overrated coach in the league, and I think that Carson Wentz is the most overrated quarterback in the league. And I hate to just sit here and be such a hater, but I am a total hater. I absolutely hate this team and these players and these coaches.
Always
but
have.
like they
The fans
really,
too.
the feds. I really don't like them. But just look at the things that they've done these past few years. Like, they have never lived up to expectations. Yeah, I know they won that Super Bowl, and that's really what put Doug Peterson on the map, right? But since then, what have they done that's been impressive? They've really just failed to live up to expectations every year since. And, he got so much praise for being such a creative play caller, Philly Special being the prime example, right? And then, against us, he's throwing goal line fades in the clutch. Like, that is just the worst play call, to Travis Fulgham. Or Harrison Butler, is that his name? The Butler guy? Like,
yeah.
He's just not, that's not something that a good coach does. That's just not smart. That isn't good. That's not creative. That's not progressive, forward-thinking, analytical football like he claims to do. He claims, Eagles fans claim that he's just such a forward-thinking offensive mind, and he's just not. And then Carson Wentz is literally a worse turnover machine than Daniel Jones really ever has been over the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz is
really
far
bad.
worse. Carson Wentz has a serious problem with turning the football over, and a lot of them really are his fault. I have this, not to be like really funny, but I have this Denzel Ward interception from yesterday playing on repeat on Twitter in front of me right now, and it's very funny. Like, Carson Wentz literally just like takes it and just floats it up there into double coverage. It's like the easiest interception I've ever seen, and I can't believe that he
Pick
actually
six, yeah.
threw. I can't believe he actually threw
Early
a pick
on.
that bad. Like, that is impressively bad. So, yeah, I'm going to keep on hating on the Eagles because it's fun and because I hate them. But also,
They deserve it.
I'm just saying, you look at this schedule, man, with the way that the Eagles are playing, I really don't see them winning this division. I think honestly, I don't want to overreact too much to the things that Dallas did this weekend. I don't want to overreact too much to the things that Dallas did this weekend, but I do think that they are the real threat. I think that the threat is Dallas and us. I think that we are the threat to everybody. We've been playing significantly better than anybody else in our division over the past few weeks, and I expect to see that continue, even though our schedule is going to toughen up over the final course of the season.
Listen, Philadelphia is really screwed, and I'll tell you why. They just lost to the Browns, so now they're already trending downward after losing to the Giants. Then they play Seattle, right? They play Seattle next week. Then they play the Packers. Then they play the Saints, and then they play the Cardinals. They could lose 4 straight games, and then they have that big one against the Cowboys that they kind of need to win at that point. So,
Dude, that's
best
like
case
death
scenario,
row.
exactly. Best case scenario, they lose the next 4 weeks and they beat the Cowboys somehow. They're just tired of losing, and they're like, let's just give the Giants a mulligan, and really give the Giants a better chance of winning the NFC East. And the probability here of the Giants actually walking away with this but I've seen several different sources, but it's basically between 25 and 35% chance the Giants win. And I'll tell you this, 2 weeks ago when the Giants were dead last in the division and had no hopes, they were not even close to that percentage. So
like a 5%
win this
chance.
week. Exactly. So a win this week, and let's say I think Washington and Dallas are playing, right? They're playing on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, I think we want Washington to win that game because we've already beat them twice in the division, so we'd have the tiebreaker against them.
And like I said, I think Dallas is a threat. I think that Dallas' schedule is really favorable, and if Andy Dalton can continue to be a solid game manager, they could actually surprise and win some games down the stretch. And that's not what we want to see. So, yeah, I think that we do have to kind of root for the football team on Thanksgiving because, like I said, Dallas is the threat here.
They're not a terrible team, by the way. The football team, we beat the crap out of them, but their defense is legit. It's their offense that really sucks.
They've got good defense, but their offense is really bad. But also, I got to say, we can't forget that Dallas really does have one of the best rosters in the NFL. Like, they have really good
CeeDee
players
Lamb,
all
Cooper.
over the place. Great offensive linemen, stacked receiving core, great running back group. They've got great linebackers. They've got great defensive linemen. The secondary is pretty suspect, but overall, that is a really good team. That's probably the best roster in this division. There's just, injured quarterback.
Just in terms of names.
Pretty bad coaching staff as well. But, they're the threat, man. They are the most talented team. They are the threat, and especially when you look at their roster. But for Philadelphia, man, to be going up against Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, and Arizona back to back to back to back, dude, that is literally 4 of the top 5 contenders in the NFC right now. The other one being the Buccaneers, I would assume, right? Those are literally like 4 of the top 5 teams in the conference. So that's what I like to see. I hope they lose every single one of those games. That would be really exciting for me. I would really, really enjoy to see them lose all of those games.
Absolutely, and looking over at Washington right now, because I just want to run through their list, they're also tied with a .300 win percentage with the Giants and Dallas. The rest of their season also isn't very easy. They have the Cowboys next week, which are, on Thursday, Thanksgiving, which will be fun. But I think they can win that game. Then they have the Steelers, who they're going to get blown the hell out by. Then they have the 49ers, which, I definitely think San Francisco could walk away with a win there. That'll be an interesting game.
50-50.
And then you have the Seahawks. So I think they lose. They for sure lose to the Steelers, for sure lose to the Seahawks. And the Panthers are very underrated. I think they lose to the Panthers, too.
I think the Panthers can handle that. The Panthers are pretty good. I've been watching a lot more Panthers football this year because my roommate's a Panthers fan. I think Matt Rule is actually the truth, and I think the Panthers, low-key, have a top 5 receiving core in the NFL. That is disgusting. The fact that they have DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Robbie Anderson, that is like really lethal.
Very solid.
So I think that they can definitely tear Washington's secondary to shreds if they want to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But, again, Washington doesn't have the best chances at winning the division. If they come in tie with the Giants win because of the divisional matchups. But the Giants really need to win that Week 17 game against Dallas. I really do think it's going to come down to that. But, they got a really big break. I don't want to see Burrow go down, but they got a really big break with that game. Because otherwise, if they lose that game, their chances are really tough. Because then they have to play Seattle, Cardinals, Browns, Ravens. That if they didn't win this game against the Bengals, they're basically screwed. They have to win this week. I think it's probably the most important game of the season up to this point, because we didn't actually anticipate the last 2 weeks being that important, And the reality is they should have beat the Cowboys the first time. They should have beat the Eagles the first time as well. They lost by 1 point, and then the Buccaneers lost by 2 points, and they just really blew the game. The defense really just didn't. Obviously, the Evan Ingram drops, we can recall those. But the defense just blew the game in the fourth quarter. They just didn't come to play on those last final drives or those last 2 drives. And I think Patrick Graham's kind of solved that. We saw it against Washington with that Logan Ryan interception, that installment they made right before the game, like the day before. They were like, this is what we're going to do on the last drive if it comes down to it. And it worked to perfection. They really baited Alex Smith into that interception. I think they're finally figuring out how to close games, how to bait quarterbacks, get to third down and then put pressure and then just drift into those spaces in zone coverage. That's really what they're doing. And I think that they've done a really good job solving those problems. And I think these adjustments are going to make during the bye week. Joe Judge and this coaching staff is not waiting around for the Bengals game. They are making changes. They're doing things. They have to turn over the offensive line group now. They have Dave DeGuglielmo coming in. So we'll see how those things, he did say today, there'll be very minor changes. There may be some technical stuff, minor tweaks, but overall it's going to remain pretty much the same. And I think they're going to continue with the rotation. But from your perspective, to finish up this video, what percentage do you think you'd give the Giants of winning the NFC East?
I'd give them a 50% chance. I do think it's very 50-50. I think it's, it's going to come down to them or another team. I think there is going to be a tie going into the final week of the division or week of the season. I don't know if it's going to be between them and Dallas. If it is, then, then it's a win and whoever wins. Right, but it could be they end up tied with the football team or with Philadelphia, and they're off playing another game completely different from ours. So, I think it's a 50-50 chance, really. I think it's going to come down to 2 teams who have the same record in Week 17, and whoever wins their game is going to get in. I think that's the way that the season is starting to unfold. So, I'd say a 50% chance. It's really tough because all 4 teams are really in this race right now. We're all in the running. We all have the same amount of wins, so it's kind of tough to say who has the edge here. Dallas has the best schedule and probably the best roster, but the Giants are playing the best, and their schedule is the second easiest, I'd say. So I don't know. It's 50-50 to me. What do you think?
I'm going to go with 40% just because I really don't trust Dallas. I feel like Andy Dalton's finally... he's a starting quarterback, right? Andy Dalton's not bad.
Dalton's probably the best backup in the NFL.
That's what I'm saying. They brought him in for a reason, and it's because of this. Their defense is still absolute garbage. They're still giving up a ton of points. But the reality is if their offense can click, Ezekiel Elliott, that offensive line, they have CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz is even doing pretty well at tight end. I'm a little worried about that group, man. I'm really not completely sold that the Cowboys should be forgotten about in this division. They always surprise, and the Giants, that's why I think it'll come down to that game. I think the Eagles are totally screwed, and I think Washington's pretty much screwed too because the Giants beat them the first 2 games. All the Giants have to do is win against the Bengals, and I guess they could win the division with 5 or 6 wins, I think. But I think to really secure it, I think they need to beat the Bengals. They need to win one of those 4 games against Seattle, Arizona, Cleveland, or Baltimore, and then they have to beat the Cowboys. But I think the easiest one they're probably going to have is against the Browns. The Ravens, Cardinals, and Seahawks are going to be really tough to beat. I think they got to beat Bengals, Browns, and Cowboys.
Yeah, but I will throw out this as a little optimism, a little piece of hope, is that we have gotten in some really close games with some really good teams like Tampa Bay, for example, and all it took was just one bad break, and that's why we lost. Maybe against Seattle or Arizona, we're in a close game, and we get one lucky break, and then we get a surprise win, So you always got to keep that in mind. It's football. It's the NFL. Any team can win.
Never know.
That's why it's a superior sports league to the NBA. I hate the NBA because we already know who's going to win before the season starts. I can already guarantee you LeBron's going to get another ring. But, True. In the NFL, man, look at this. We have 4 teams in the same division all the way in Week 12 that all have the exact same amount of wins and the exact same chance of making it to the playoffs. That's why I just love the NFL. I love football, and I'm really excited to see where this season goes. I think it's going to be really exciting, and I can't wait to see our New York Giants hopefully pick up some more wins and hopefully make it back to the playoffs for the first time since 2016. Let's keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best.
Absolutely, my friends. So this is it for the NFC East implications video, detailing kind of what to expect from the Giants, the rest of the teams in the division, and what our hopes for, what the probability is the Giants can walk away with the NFC East divisional title. A lot of football left to play, but I'm pretty optimistic, and I think Anthony is as well. So hopefully you guys are feeling the same way, and we're looking forward to the Bengals matchup, and hopefully we can get a win in that one. But stay tuned for the next video. Got some good stuff on the defense and a lot of really good content for the Giants coming out as they continue to win. And you know what happens when they win. We are happy, and we make more content because it's way more exciting. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.